Hello, and welcome to this month's Sovereign AI Industry Advisor for June 2026. And the news story of the month and maybe the year is the geopolitical action of the White House, the US Commerce Department, ordering Anthropic to restrict access to its latest models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, to any foreign national. And if you have a background in IT, you know how impossible that task is. We normally don't build systems that track people by their citizenship, at least not yet today. As a result of that action, uh, on June 12th, where that order was given, dozens of cybersecurity researchers and representatives, entrepreneurs, etc., signed an open letter commenting and providing advice that, hey, in future, it would be nice to have this be much more open, based on fact, not just kind of most recent information received. Now, the stories that we're going to cover this month, we'll go more into the Anthropic action that they had to take. We'll talk about latest updates, the EU AI Act, the China's sovereign AI plans, more on the EU AI members, particularly France and Germany, and their actions, what the UK is doing with hardware, Canada's recently AI for All strategy they just announced in June, and then we'll turn to Australia and take a look at the very first AI factory that will be going in, and then look at South Korea Telecoms and their upcoming AI factory that they would like to implement. So, the Anthropic ban. So, if people didn't consider AI a geopolitical weapon, it now is. And people close to this story at Anthropic said that they only had 90 minutes to comply to the order. An impossible task, really. And I can understand and sympathize that the only way that they could probably do that was to restrict access to everybody globally, and that's what they did. So who knows? Maybe in the future they will track this information and then they can restrict by citizenship. Now, after that action on Friday, the G7 summit in France, world leaders met with AI leaders, and the discussion was around, okay, you made Anthropic kind of bend to your will. Is there any way that Western allies can still get access to this? So a trusted network framework was discussed, but nothing was agreed upon. So the restrictions still stand at this time. The EUA Act they've just released a European technology sovereignty package. So it gets into more brass tacks, a little more granular, action-oriented. And what they'd like to do is essentially reduce their dependency on the cloud hyperscalers. So they cite that 70 to 80% of the resources they use to build AI systems comes from outside the EU, and they'd like to change that. So this package introduces a number of directives, orders or acts to follow and to comply to help reduce their dependency on the cloud vendors. So part of that is to increase their capabilities and to start to manufacture semiconductors, because really nothing, or next to nothing, is really built in Europe there, and to promote the local domestic clouds because their market share has been falling, to promote open source technologies rather than the proprietary models from the Silicon Valley area, particularly. Moving to the next sovereign story, China is targeting to have 80% of their infrastructure that they're building, which is going to consolidate their disparate systems into a national connected network here. And part of that is they want 80% of that technology stack to be sourced locally. And what that does essentially is it really bars and bans NVIDIA and AMD based technology. So the companies that will benefit from this, Huawei and their SN platform and their solution or alternative to CUDA is MindSpore. And there's their domestic cloud vendors, domestic AI servers, and more. I believe Malaysia has signed up, and again, they're looking to look for alternatives rather than depend on the Western technologies. And you could say that the June 12th event just fuels the drive for looking for alternatives to US-based technology. Our next story looks at France and Germany, and they just put out a new sovereignty framework here. And where France and Germany goes, the rest of the EU is going to follow. And one of the, I guess, tenets and restrictions is that the cloud provider, their headquarters, has to be in the EU, which really takes out AWS, Microsoft, and Google. So it'll be interesting to see how the others react there. And their positioning sovereignty is really something kind of a strength, and it's really kind of an openness for like-minded countries, the middle powers to work together here. And they're careful and not to try to position this as a form of isolationism. In the UK, they recently announced their AI hardware plan. And the biggest components of the hardware plan is really to build their next national AI supercomputer, which takes the majority of the funding. But also they recognize that they're lagging behind in building the hardware infrastructure. They rely on the US and China for that. So there is money there to buy inference chips, but also this hardware innovation program, funding for UK companies to help them design chips in the UK. Announced a had an AI for all bulletin last time. There's a separate YouTube video for that if you want to get into more details here. But Canada had an AI strategy, but they've updated it now, and it's very comprehensive. And the challenge I think Canada's going to face is to get the adoption, to get people on board and to ingest and to really leverage AI. There's still a lot of concerns with the technology. There's a lot of perceived risk that people want guidance on how best to navigate and to manage these risks. And in Australia, Project Southgate represents this massive build of an AI factory. At first, 288 megawatts there. And good thing about it, it's going to be powered with green environmental energy sources. And that's going to be over 3 sites. And one site is already being built as we speak. Now, when something happens that's new, there are obviously people are reacting and wondering, hey, is this going to affect us? And there's legislation going in to ensure that the locals won't get billed and have to pay for this. And again, there's an uncertainty that what happens when you have these data centers that consume more energy than all the people living in this area. So that's something that they're going to have to address, but at this time they seem to be moving forward. There's a lot of promotion of the economic gains that comes from this, and that's probably one of the main reasons why this project's going ahead. And our last story is on South Korea Telecom, and they just inked a deal with NVIDIA to build their first AI factory to go into production sometime in 2027. And if you went to the last NVIDIA GTC conference, what you would have seen is a number of telecoms around the world seem to be the natural, I guess, national resource that countries have that they're leveraging. And what these telecoms are doing, not just South Korea, but certainly Singapore, a number of prominent telecoms, what they're doing is they want to reposition and pivot in providing more than just connectivity to AI, but provide the entire technology stack. And so they're excited by this opportunity, but it's a massive change here. And SK Telecom is taking that plunge, and we'll be watching to see how this develops. That's it for this month, and we'll be covering stories like this in our July YouTube video coming soon. Thanks, and enjoy the month.